this particular class for the sake of those people who have got various reasons as to why they will not be joining the class today. Now, today's class, we are going to focus on a topic, and this topic is called Corporate Social Responsibility, CSR, as known as CSR. Maybe I can ask some of you, because I think when you are covering the strategic activities of PR, we touched on CSR. Maybe I can ask one of you to explain to us what he understands or she understands when we talk about CSR. Can we have someone? You just lift your hand, you click on the hand, and then I will see it, and then you can explain it to us. Do you have anybody who can explain to us what CSR is? We covered this last week. And we covered it at the strategic perspectives of PR. Anybody who can explain to us what CSR is? I'm not telling you don't Google it. You can Google. There is no problem with that, because in academics, we encourage what we call technology in academics. Even in my class, my physical class, I usually tell students, you can Google. Go to the Google, make Google your friend, find out what it means, and then tell us. But don't do that in the exam. If you do that in the exam, my friend, you'll find yourself in a very hot soup. Yes, we have this student by the name Ngui Newton. Yes, Newton, what is CSR?
So it is, this one refers to the transparent business practices that are based on ethics, values, or compliance with legal requirements and respect for people. That is what I understand by the
Thank you so much, Newton. Can we have a lady telling us what CSR is? Let's have what we call gender equality. This is a very, when you talk about gender equality, it's a very, very, very hot topic. Can we have gender equality? So we start with what we call charity begins at home. We start with another. Can we have a lady telling us something? Or explaining to us what corporate social responsibility is all about? Ladies, are you still sleeping in the house? Tupate msichana tafadhali mwenye atatuambia what CSR is all about. We are not going to start this class unless we find a lady who will explain it to us. And I said you can even Google. Make Google your friend. But don't make Google your friend during an exam period. You'll be in a very hot soup. Can we have somebody else, a lady? Now, if you don't have a lady, then I'm going to choose it by myself. Yes, no, Sigei editor. And these are the CMS students. Congratulations so much. Yes, Sigei.
Corporate social responsibility is when a company operates in an ethical and sustainable way and deals with its environment.
Are you done, editor? Is it all? Have you said it all? Somebody else want to help editor? Teresia Machua. And these are all the CMS students.
For me, corporate social responsibility is a management concept. Is a management concept whereby companies integrate social and environmental concerns in their business operations and interactions.
Thank you so much, Teresia. Thank you so much, those who have managed to tell us what corporate social responsibility is. If your microphone is on, Teresia, switch it off. Switch off your microphone. Yeah, and again, before I continue, whenever you join a class, ensure that your microphone is off. So we are saying this, that ensure that you switch off your microphone when you join, specifically when you called to speak, and then you're done speaking, make sure that you switch off your microphone. Again, those who are joining classes for the first time, the first thing that you should do when you join an online class is to check whether your microphone is off or on. Then switch it off if it is on. That is it, simple. Because if you switch on your microphone, you're going to disturb the whole class, and you will leave me with no choice other than not even to put you in a waiting room, to kick you out of this class. And the next time you'll be joining this class with me next week, like a day like today, and a time like now. Now allow me to share my screen so that we can start our class officially. Hope you can see my screen. So today we are going to cover a topic called corporate social responsibility. We've heard from 3 of our students what corporate social responsibility is all about. Now, when you talk about corporate social responsibility, last week we covered a topic on the strategic perspective of PR. I think it was strategic, no, the internal and external what? Somebody remind me. Let me go back to, yeah, we looked at the internal and external public relations. And in those particular notes, when we were going through the notes, we came across what we call strategic perspectives of public relations, and no strategic activities of PR. And we said one of the, and there were 18. If my memory serves me right, there were 18 strategic perspectives of PR, and one of them is corporate social responsibility. So when you talk about corporate social responsibility, it's the organization's responsibility to do what? To give back to the community what it deserves. So the social responsibility of organizations, we can actually say that companies are not the state, and they are not there to provide services and facilities which should properly be provided by the welfare agencies and paid out of taxation. But companies, you're going to realize they are part of the society. They are part of the society. By the way, do you know that the society can bar you from starting your own company? Do you know that the society is so powerful that it can bar you from starting your own company around? It will sue you, it will make sure that it seeks what we call legal support, and you will be out of that particular area. Like for example, where I live, there are some people, businessmen, that started what we call a club. It was a club just like any other. So they started a club. The club was good, and the club people started buying what we call drinks from the club, and people usually visit. I mean, during weekends, the club was packed to the maximum. But let me tell you, that club never lasted for 3 weeks. It never lasted for 3 weeks because the community came in and they fought the owner of the club legally. And as we speak right now, the club was closed. In other words, what I'm trying to tell you is that a society or the society or even the community is very powerful to an extent that it can bar you from starting a particular company or starting a company in the locality or in that particular where it is. I mean, the community can bar you from starting a company or even a business. So therefore, a society is or a community is a very important publics of public relations, and they have a very big say when it comes to organizations that operate close to them. And we have seen even some companies that have been started by what we call some Indians. If you go to YouTube, there is a company that was started by some Indians somewhere in is it Kitui or Machakos? And this company produced products that were so harmful to the animals, to the community, and so on and so forth. But as the time went by, because it was even this company, I mean, the chemicals even contaminated the water that the community usually depended upon. So you realize after some times the company was closed due to maybe, for example, the community complaining about the sickness. I mean, the skin diseases, some sort of sicknesses, and some sort of diseases that were coming from the emission of the chemicals that the company was, or the emission of the chemical from the company. So therefore, we are saying that companies are part of the society or the community in which they operate. So if you start a company in Ruiru, just know that that company is part of that particular community. And they need to consider their corporate behavior. The way you behave as a company, consider it. There are some companies that have been started in various communities within a community. And you realize that they don't even employ the people in that particular locality. You realize that they even do what we call racial hatred. Racial hatred is hating a person based on the skin color, based on the height, physical appearance, based on where he comes from, based on what we call ethnicity, and so on and so forth. So you realize that that company does not employ people from that particular locality. So such companies do not exist for long, because even the community will not interact with you positively. The products that you produce, if they go to the supermarkets or to what we call the stores, outlet stores, they will not buy your community. Suppose it is a company that what we call manufactures, or suppose it's a company that manufactures soap in a certain locality. They behave very badly towards the community. And then they stock these products of theirs in various supermarkets or various outlet stores. The community will not buy them, because in the first place, your behavior towards the community is bad. And as we said, that the best marketer who doesn't even require payment is the customer. Once you serve the customer very well, he does a lot of campaigning for your organization and for your products and for your services. But if you don't serve your customer very well, then they are going to market you negatively. And they market and you don't pay them even a penny. That is it. So the corporate behavior, so the company should consider their corporate behavior as part of their role in the society. So the impact which businesses have in the community in which they operate come from different levels. The impacts which businesses have in the community in which they operate usually come in 3 different roles or 3 different levels. Level number one is that at the most basic level, a company fulfills the legal requirement laid upon as an organization, as a company, or as a factory, or as a corporate organization. Before you even start an organization, you have to fulfill the legal requirements laid upon. For example, you need to pay taxes. You need to observe the laws and the deals fairly with the stakeholders or stockholders. You need to observe the law. In Kenya, you cannot just come and start a business and you don't pay taxes. You don't even have legal requirements for you to start that particular company. In fact, government being one of the publics of public relations, it will buy you completely. And there is no country in this whole world that you can start a business without meeting the legal requirements. Number two, the company takes account of its reasonability as an organization and considers any negative effects that it may have. So you have to take reasonability. You have to take a responsibility for any negative effect that your company has on other people. For example, the potential effect of the company's existence. For example, your products, maybe your products, they are chemical products. And you know very well Companies, for anything to operate like companies, they need water. Where will you be getting your water from? Are you going to be getting it from the river? Then the waste, where will you be taking the waste to? No? So you need to do what? To check on that. I like those people who have done marketing. I hope you are here, or maybe you did a course in marketing. There is something we call marketing concepts. There are some things we call, there is something that I learned when I was doing my marketing, because I did marketing management, something called marketing concept. And in the marketing concept, it emphasizes that an organization must make strategic marketing decisions. That an organization needs to do what? To make strategic marketing decisions, keeping in mind the consumer's want. So the organizational needs and, most important, the long-term interests of the community, they have to put in mind all those. So this concept, it is usually called the societal marketing concept. A societal marketing is nothing but an outgrowth of the principles of corporate social responsibility. It's an outgrowth of the principle of corporate social responsibility and sustainable development. So it underlines that companies should not ignore the society's long-term welfare. Remember, our society is a very important and in fact, a very impactful public relation. That's why you're told, do not ignore the society's long-term welfare. So as you, as an organization, you can achieve your mission and you can be able to achieve your vision. So therefore, an organization should have moral and environmentally friendly strategies. If you're an organization that manufactures soap, you should have a very moral and environmentally friendly strategies, and you should ensure that there is what we call proper acts and laws are implemented in terms of how you started the business, in terms of even paying taxes, in terms of even hiring and firing people. Ensure that you follow the acts and laws, and you ensure that those acts and laws are implemented properly without fear or favor. So in today's world, you're going to realize, so in today's world of increasing what we call environmental distractions, because so many companies, so many factories are distracting the environment at a very high rate. So there is what we call scarcity of resources in today's increasing environment. In today's world, there is what we call scarcity of resources. There is rapidly increasing population, and there is abandoned social services. So therefore, the societal concept, we are still on the concept. I'm still explaining about the societal marketing concept. So the societal concept of marketing is doubted. It is the question that our organization doing an outstanding task of customer satisfaction in line with meeting long-term societal welfare. It's a question. So consider, for example, a food industry, those who are doing DHM, diploma in hospitality management. Consider, for example, a fast food industry. Number one, they provide yummy food. But this food is full of health concerns. For example, the burgers, they are rich in fat. Even the French fries, or what we normally call them chips, even the pies, they are full of fat. So such products are packed in handy. They are packed in handy form, and the packaging generating a lot of waste. You realize that when they are packed in a paper bag form, they are packed in paper bags, they are packed in plastics. These plastics generate a lot of waste. Thereby, in the process of satisfying the customers, these fast food outlets are creating increasingly what we call health concerns as well as health issues. So in other words, we are being told that as far as we are talking about corporate social responsibility, put in mind community. Put in mind the customer, because that is level two of what the company should consider. Thirdly, we are told that the company operating at level 3 is less common. Those that operate at level 3, they are very less common. And this type of organization, they sees itself as having responsibility for health, for a health society, and accepts the job of helping and remove or alleviate problems in the society. Like, how do you, for example, deal with the waste? How do you, for example, deal with the environmental issues to do with what we call pollution of the environment? How do you deal with such? And apart from that, how do you deal with the society? Society, whenever, for example, you start your company in a certain organization, you realize, in a certain community, you realize that there are so many problems that are going there. You realize that these people have got very poor health habits. You realize that these people, some of them are very poor, they cannot even afford school fees. You realize that in this community, we have people who need proper health care. You realize that there are people who needs what we call good education, or you realize they need what we call proper road infrastructure or technology. So as an organization, it is your responsibility to ensure that at least you do some few things for the community, so that the community can see the benefit of you being in that particular community, so that they can see the benefit of you or your company in that particular community. So then we ask ourselves why organization should consider CSR. So in short, we are asking, what is the importance of CSR? So there is a person, there is a scholar, or we can call him an academician, or we can call him a philosopher. His name is Friedman, in 1962. And this guy argues that the very foundation of our free society would be undermined. The very foundation of our free society would be undermined if corporate social responsibility, or if corporate officials accepted and there was what we call social responsibility, other than to make much money for their stockholders as possible. However, there is another scholar by the name Davis in 1967, and he believes that no responsibility is no power. Every responsibility that you do, in short, is powerful. If organizations wish to maintain their positions of power, if an organization wishes to maintain that responsibility or that position of power in a pluralistic society, then they must accept their social responsibility. That is Davis, 1967. Therefore, why should organizations consider their CSR? Number one, there is what we call pluralism. Pluralism. Maybe somebody can tell us what pluralism is. Maybe we look at synonym. Maybe not ask somebody to tell us. Let me look at the synonym of pluralism. We don't have it. So what is pluralism? Can we have somebody tell us what pluralism is? From the word plural. I also teach English, and when you talk about plural, the opposite of plural is singular. So when you talk about pluralism, it means that there are many. It's many. So in this particular country, we live in a pluralistic society. A pluralistic society is when we have diverse groups of people. We have people of different ages. We have people of different caliber. We have different social classes. We have people of different colors, different heights, different ethnicity, and so on and so forth. So we live in a pluralistic society. where many diverse groups exist and where power and responsibility are shared. Like, for example, when you work in a company, not everybody does the same job. You're not going to find that everybody is a manager in a company. No, we need to have a manager. We need to have employees, the low-level employees, the middle-level employees, and the top-level employees. So in every organization, there is what we call power and responsibility is usually shared. And every business institution has some power to offer, and thus responsibility to a number of groups of people, which it is talks something of the sort. So they include staff, the wider community, and these groups also have responsibility of the business institutions, which arises out of their power to affect it. So the reason as to why we need corporate social responsibility is number one, pluralism. Because we live in a pluralistic society where many diverse groups exist. So therefore, there is what we call, you have to ensure that there is responsibility. Everybody is given a responsibility. The power is shared. So that we can have marketing department being driven by a marketing manager or being spearheaded by a marketing manager. We can have public relations department that is being spearheaded by a public relations officer or a public relations expert, and so on and so forth. Number two is reputation. Reputation. And when you talk about reputation, a company's reputation can be seen as the sum of the public beliefs. It is the way the public sees you. Last, when we were covering the first topic, we looked at the six types of images, the 6 types of the public relations images. We have the wish image, we have the multiple image, we have the current image, we have all those images. So a company wants to do what? A company's reputation can be seen as a sum total of the public or how the public believes about it. And how the public believes about, how the public believes on you, or how the public trusts you, depends on how you portray yourself towards the public. So that's why Jeffkins says that in PR, they are what we call images. So there is current image, there is multiple image, there is the wish image, and there is what we call all those images. So everything that you do, everything that you engage yourself in, you are either building your image or you are destroying the image the image that you had initially that was good. So therefore, we are saying that public believes about it based on their own experiences. So the public will believe on you based on maybe your products, based on the services, based on their experiences on the products and the services, and what they have read or heard from others, and the way in which, through its frontline and top-level staff, is seen to behave. For example, if you get into a company, maybe Zetech University, and you get to maybe, for example, the first place is the reception. Nobody is talking to you. They are not even bothering with you. They don't even care whether you are there or not. You are asking people, excuse me, where can I get this? And then they are not talking to you. Then that tells you that you're going to get out of that place having a very negative image about that particular organization. So like last week, we were celebrating customer service week. We had a customer service week. Yeah? Worldwide, not in Kenya, but it was worldwide. So companies may have good reputation or a bad reputation, or no reputation at all. There are some companies that do not even have reputation. There are those who have got good reputation, there are those who have got bad reputation, and there are those that do not even have a reputation at all. Why? Because they are not well enough known. Some companies are not well enough known. So I don't want to go into the survey that was done by by somebody there. But we can look at no, I don't want to go to the survey. Then let's look at the other reason. The other reason as to why we should adopt CSR is number three is to avoid government intervention. Sometimes we get into CSR to avoid government intervention. So the press complaint, that is what it says, commission, press complaint commission. It's actually not complaints, but complaint commission. The PCC, usually known as the Press Complaint Commission, is taking every opportunity to show that it can regulate its own industry. And therefore, there is no need for the government to pass legislation prescribing any of its activities, because PCC has managed to, as far to avoid, I don't understand the point, but in other words, sometimes we do CSR to avoid what we call government intervention. Number four, we do CSR to demand for public opinion. We want people to tell us how do we look? How are we? A company demonstrates its interest in what concerns the public and how issues of the future may impact upon the company's interests and reputation. So sometimes, however, a company's business behavior can become an issue to public other than those who seem to be directly affected by it. So therefore, companies need to consider what public will make their action in other spheres. So in other words, sometimes we want what we call public opinion. For example, we can decide we are going to build hospitals for the community because we have realized as a company, there are very poor facilities, hospital facilities. So we decide either to renovate the hospitals or we decide to build new hospitals free of charge for the community. And then you build like several of them. Then you sit back and you see what is the public opinion about us building the hospitals. Or maybe you have realized that the infrastructure, the road infrastructure is very poorly done. So you decide to make it smooth, or you decided to make it better. Or maybe you have realized that some children have not gone to school because the community that surrounds you is a very poor community. So you decide to build schools for them, or maybe you decide to sponsor even the poor kids who live in that particular community. Then you wait and hear what are the society, what is the public, or what is the community's opinion. So sometimes we do CSR so that we can get an opinion from the public. Like a very good example is Equity Bank. Equity Bank. What are people saying? Especially those whose students have been sponsored by Equity Bank. What is their opinion towards that? What is the opinion of the government? Also, we have ethical customer. So the principles that customers would rather not do harm to his or her environment or to the society at large has influenced environment, or to the society at large has influenced, has got what we call influenced environmental friendliness. So sometimes we do corporate social responsibility to look at the ethical customer. For example, issues to do with cleaning of what we call cleaning of streets. There are some companies that says the whole of this week we are going to do what to clean the society. I mean, to clean the streets of Nairobi, or to clean the streets of maybe Murang'a town, or the streets of maybe Kiambu town. You do that for the purposes of an ethical customer, so that you can have a customer who believes in you when it comes to matter of ethics. And then when it comes to, we do also what we call CSR, so that we can be given a license to operate. For example, a company that does very good CSR, the government will be there. Even when you ask for, maybe for example, you've been given a license for 3 years, and then it expires. And then looking at the things that you have done, the corporate social responsibilities that you have done during that particular or within the period of 3 years, you have done very good things. Even when you go to the government officials and you are telling them to renew the license, they will renew. They can even give you more years because the society and the government is happy because of what you have done to the community. Were it not for you, then the community would not have gotten to where it has gotten. So sometimes we do that for us to have a license to operate, or for our licenses to be renewed. Any question up to that point? Kuna swali? Do we have any question? Any point that is not understood that you need or you think it should be repeated? Now let's look then, if there is no question, let's look at discharging the organizational or the organization's social responsibility. So allow me to go through the writings. Allow me to go through what has been written here. And we are saying this, that once convinced of the need to discharge their their social responsibility, organizations have to make decisions about how they are going to do so. So they need first to do 2 things. You have been given the go-ahead, or maybe, for example, you have come to realize that there is a need to do corporate social responsibility. Then you have to make decisions about how you're going to do it. And you have to, first of all, consider 2 things. Number 1, you need to consider balancing effect, interest. For example, we are told that it may be that a company is faced with dilemma in resolving conflict views about how society's interests will be served. For example, you're being told an example is furnished by the Cadbury company in South Africa during apartheid. At the time, anti-apartheid campaigners were trying to persuade companies to disinvest in South Africa in considering its position as an influencing and highly principled company operating in a country run by a morally repugnant regime. Cadbury considered its stakeholders and its employees. So the staff who worked for the company in South Africa had the most direct stake in its continuing or leaving. So Cadbury believed the voice of its staff was least likely to be heard outside South Africa in arriving at the decision to remaining in South Africa. So the company took account of its record, and Cadbury continued to operate in South Africa subsidiaries throughout the period of apartheid. So in other words, you're being told you need to look at balancing interests. Maybe, for example, there is some political unrest. There are political unrest, and there is the community here. The community has benefited so much from you. And then, because of political unrest, you are thinking of, can we close the business? Or should the business remain? But look at what the community is telling you. It's telling you that you just remain here because we have seen that you're doing very good work. So you need to think about that. Before you leave or before you close the company, you need to think about the community and maybe, for example, something else that is happening that is making you being in dilemma. Maybe should we leave the company or should we continue with the company because of maybe what is happening in the environment. So before you discharge organization social responsibility, you need also to look at the balancing effect. Then you also need to do what we call, you set a criteria. So organization needs to plan for their CSR program. You don't just decide I'm going to build hospitals for the society. You need to plan. And in planning, there is what we call cooperation. So if in that particular planning there is no cooperation, then there is nothing that you're going to plan. You cannot plan something and succeed successfully. And we said that if you make noise for us, well, you will just find yourself you are not in class. And you try to join that class and you will not be able. Like the person who has just been making noise for us. Don't know that he is in the kitchen trying to prepare some breakfast or something of the sort, but we have to kick that person out. So whenever you are making noise, me, I'm not going to warn you. The only thing you just find yourself, you're not in class. And you try to join and even try to call me, and I will not pick your call. So it is always good to take responsibility. And if you're not ready to take the responsibility, then we are going to kick you out. So ethical implications of CSR. I don't know that we are going to finish this thing, but I want you to go through. Let's look at those ethical implications. Ethical implications of CSR. So we are told that you need to look at the motive. They are what we call ethical implications of CSR. That some companies usually have CSR because they have a very bad motive. Even some people, they come up with what we call bad motive. They are saying that this is corporate social responsibility, but the motive is to raise funds, especially from those people who are doing what? Those who are supporting you, other organizations that are supporting you in carrying out a certain CSR activity. So you might find that you want to raise funds. You just want to raise funds, and then from there, you keep silent. Like, for example, you might find that there are some crooked organizations. They just come up and they say, we are going to have to give what we call scholarship. And then you start asking for funds from various corporate organizations. Like, say, for example, this is XYZ company. So we have identified a CSR activity. Number one, say, for example, we are going to educate the girl child. So you look for sponsors. You say, number one, we will look for sponsors. Safaricom will be our sponsor, number one. Number two, Airtel. Number three, it will be StanChart. Number four, it will be this company. And number five, it will be this company. And successfully, they give you the funds. Could be the motive is that once you receive the fund, you only educate 3 or 10 girls. Then the remaining money, you spend it in your own way, something like that. So you need to know the motive. As an organization, you need to know, why are we carrying out the CSR? Is it to educate? Is it to make, to do what? You need to know the motive of that, because good operating principles involving ethical dealings, strong people, values, and generous and far-reaching sense of the community responsibilities are usually essential to effective long-term performance. Because if you have a very bad motive of doing a certain CSR, just know that you are tarnishing the image of the organization. And then another, what we call ethical implication of CSR is susceptible targets. So susceptible targets, you are told that this has to do with the age of the targeted public and recognition of young children and the elderly who need special consideration. For example, as a sponsor, you are being told sponsorship of events for charitable purposes might be aimed at school children. If the child is expected to pester parents to make unnecessary what we call purchases or competition element is introduced in which it favors children from well-off families, the ethical wisdom of the company may be questioned. Imagine you want to do a CSR, and in this CSR, maybe for example, it's a sport activity. Then from the sports activity, you're going to raise funds to do a certain thing. And then you're telling the kids, for each kid to qualify, then you must buy, say, for example, you must buy a bicycle, or you must buy maybe, say, for example, a bicycle. Just know that if we have very poor people in that community, not everybody will afford that particular bicycle. And therefore, these targets, they are not going to be met by poor people. So the poor people will not participate. And maybe the raising of the funds is to raise, the raising of the funds is specifically to educate the girl child or to educate poor children in the society. That one will not happen. So you're actually giving the poor, or only the rich people, or only the rich kid will be the one that will participate in those particular targets, or in those particular activities for you to raise the amount of money that you want to raise. The next one is Food Rules sponsor. Now, the Food Rules sponsor, this is the company which does not have long-term or considered policy, but which takes opportunities as they arise. It can create some ethical problems. Okay. For example, you find that there are those people who are sponsors. For example, you find that we are going to sponsor this child from Form 1 to Form 4. Then in between, you realize that you don't even have money. These children have gotten to maybe Form 2. You don't have money to pay for school fees in Form 4 and in Form 3 and Form 4. So those are the Food Rules sponsors. Food Rules sponsors, they just take an opportunity as it arises, and then in between they are not able to satisfy, or they are not able to execute that particular corporate social responsibility successfully. Number 2, we have also favoritism and cherry picking. Whenever you are doing what we call CSR, avoid favoritism. Avoid picking, cherry picking, that you say, we are going to sponsor girl child. And then from there, you are picking maybe girls from a certain region, or you are picking people from a certain tribe, or you are picking people from a certain culture. You are cherry picking those who are going to benefit from the sponsor, from the CSR activity. That one is wrong, and that one is unethical. Then there is what we call over-reliance on sponsor. Over-reliance on sponsor is when, for example, you being the beneficiary of a CSR activity, you rely on the sponsor 100%. For example, is issues to do with sponsoring someone's education. So you are relying on the sponsor to buy even uniform, to pay even what we call the transport for you, or maybe the air ticket, to provide food for you, to make sure that everything, that one is unethical. So when you over-rely on the sponsor, you might be very discouraged at the end of the day. And then there is what we call dubious association. Dubious association is you get into you're saying we are sponsoring some people, and then after getting the money, you run away. And this one is common, it's rampant in Kenya, whereby we are told we are going to sponsor girl child to study abroad in US. And then people come in handy, they are given forms, you're told you're going to pay 5,000 and a refundable fee. And all of a sudden, this organization disappears just like that. That's a dubious association. So that one is unethical. Number 3 is letting others off the hook. Raising So here you're told that the companies need to consider the ethical implication of providing goods or services as an act of charity that in that provision, and that is deemed to be fundamental right of all citizens. So therefore, you are being told the purpose of raising this ethical implication is not to degenerate the way in which companies fulfill their CSR. So both companies and the society in which they operate need to understand what they are doing and why. So you need to understand why both the company and the beneficiary needs to understand why things are happening and why things are happening, and why things are happening the way they are happening, or why a certain CSR activity is all about, or the reason as to why it is there, or why a certain CSR activity has been is taking place. So one of the criticism of charitable donation is that they take the pace of proper provision. So similar criticism has been or can be leveled at corporate community involvement, especially when it is seen as an alternative way of providing welfare services or essential equipment. So companies need to consider the ethical implication of providing goods or services as an act of charity. In that provision, it is deemed to be fundamental right for all citizens. I think I've repeated that. So that is it. So I don't want to read into the summary of this particular chapter, but I'll call it a day. I think that is the last thing that I'm looking at. So there are what we call ethical implications of CSR. There are some considerations that you must consider before you come up with what we call a CSR activity. And there are also what we call, there are so many things that we have learned. Maybe allow me to go through the notes very fast to do the summary instead of rereading what is written there. So number one, we have looked at corporate social responsibility, and we have said it is a PR, it's a strategic PR activity. Number two, we have also looked at the social responsibility of an organization, which falls under 3 levels, and why organizations should consider CSR. Number one, we said pluralism, reputation. Number 3, we said it's avoiding government intervention. Number 4, demands of public opinion. Number 5 is the ethical customer. And number 6 was a license to operate. Then we looked at discharging the organization's corporate social responsibility. And we said that a company has to consider 2 things, the balancing effect, and also setting criteria. And then from there, we also looked at the ethical implication of CSR. Number 1, we said the motive must be very clear. We also have what we call susceptible targets, that you realize that you've given targets for people to meet so that they can join the CSR activity. So you realize that there are some people who have been left out simply because they cannot provide what you had requested them so as to join a CSR activity. Now then, for next one, we have talked about the footloose sponsor, favoritism and cherry picking. Those one are unethical behaviors, and also our over-reliance of on the sponsor. The people who rely on the sponsors for every small thing, as far as, every small thing that they require. When you talk about that they require in a certain, maybe for example, CSR activity, or for a successful CSR activity to take place. We also looked at dubious associations and also letting others off the hook. So with that, I think I'll call it a day. Unless there is a question. Yes, Masiro.
So Mwalimu, looking at the efforts of CSR, can we then say the metrics for measuring CSR efforts are based on are categorized in 3 parts, that is environmental, social, and governance? That's correct? My understanding.
Yes. True. That is very true.
Yeah. And again, when it comes to social, we have to subdivide it into private sector, that is, that is public sector, that is involving safety and health of the community. That is very important. We can also look at the infrastructure and developments being done by the company for the society. Is correct? And of course, the supply chain as well. Some people, some companies involve themselves in some very unethical business practices, which may breed corruption as well. So that's the public part of it. This is my understanding is correct.
It's very correct. It's very correct, Masiro.
And then when we talk of the, social, again, we have to talk of the private sector, whereby you talked about the diversity. That is very important, whereby human rights situation has to be considered. And again, human resources, then gender equality and performance in, staff appraisal and all that. So basically, I'm just trying to, as an overview of what we've just discussed. So that is my understanding. Is it correct, Mwalimu?
Very correct. Again, you have reminded me of some companies that have found themselves in the wrong eyes of the public. For example, a company like Coca-Cola, you can Google, you can find out. There are so many companies that, so many countries that have bad products from Coca-Cola. Again, when you look at the history of Coca-Cola from various, because Coca-Cola is a multinational company, you realize that there are places that it was accused of racism. And it was a very big issue. Whenever you talk about racism internationally, it's something that is it's actually a very serious issue. It's just like what we call, what we call it. It's just like what we call, what do we call it? When you talk about racism and okay, it's disappearing.
Racism or bigotry or something like this?
When you talk about, no, racism has been taken so seriously. Yeah, like for example, if you are a racist, for example, in a particular country, say for example, US, is a very serious one. And it's like just like what we call when you sexual harassment. It's just like sexual harassment. And the penalties of sexual harassment, even in Kenya, they are very high. If a lady says that he has been sexually harassed, that's a very, very serious accusation. The same case with what we call racism. So when you look at Coca-Cola and their products, and you can even Google us, I know there are people who are using laptop, you can minimize the screen and check. There are so many countries that have banned the use of Coca-Cola product. Even when you go into history, you realize that there are some countries where Coca-Cola company has been accused of racism. And now when you look at that, it brings about what we call the negative corporate, the negative corporate image. But they know how they juggled it, and you can see that even when you get to the supermarket, the only thing that we run to are the Coca-Cola products. We don't want to go to other products like Pepsi and like 7-Ups and such things. So that is very impressive, Masiro. There are people who are not following, but at least you have awakened them. Thank you. Kamau, yes, you raised your hand.
So I was asking.
Yes.
I thought when you're doing a CSR, you are targeting the rich people to give you money. So I don't get the point where you have to include the poor, where you have to bring the poor people to the activity, because the money you're raising is for them. And if they don't have it, where will they get it? Like when you say they buy a bicycle, I thought, yeah, the person who's going to buy the bicycle is a rich person. And when they buy the bicycle, it's supposed to help this poor person. So does it really matter if the poor people do not participate in the CSR?
Now it was like this, yeah? There are some CSR activities that requires the participants to do some things. Like for example, for you to get into a CSR activity, you have maybe, for example, to buy a bicycle. Maybe it is a race. Now you see, now you are sidelining others. You're just telling us that this race is not for people who cannot buy a bicycle. That's what I meant.
But then the money is supposed to help these people. So
No,
at the end of the day,
I'm saying this, for example, you have come up with a CSR activity, and one of the requirements for somebody to be or to qualify, requirements you have to meet them. For one requirement for someone to qualify is to buy a bicycle, or maybe you have to pay like 5,000 non-refundable fee. Let's just talk about something else. You are saying for this person, he need to buy, for example, to pay 5,000 application fee, non-refundable. The poor cannot afford 5,000 shillings. So the people who will participate then, they are the rich, those who can afford 5,000. So then you are giving them targets that they cannot meet. That's what we mean. For example, when you win a green card to go to US, there is always this period, you pay your own, your air ticket. You pay your own air ticket, around 100,000. It's around 100,000, $10,000, 100,000. Now it means, okay, for example, you have won the green card and you have gone to those particular interviews and they have found that you are fit to go. And they even give you the date, but just know that you'll be paying the air ticket by yourself. If you are a poor person who have won a green card, will you be able to go there? You will not be able. It is just as that, because those targets are susceptible. I hope you have understood me.
yes, I have.
Yeah, that is it. Forget about the bicycle. Think about something like maybe an application fee. You need to pay an application fee of maybe an application fee of 5,000 for you now to be put into or for you to be considered for that CSR. It becomes very difficult, and only those people who can afford will be able to participate. That is my point. Any question? Question? Then if you don't have any question, just allow me to do what? To take you through what is expected of you. Remember, next week we are going to have Cat 1. I know I believe I've made myself clear. Next week we are going to have Cat 1. How it will be administered, I'll communicate on the WhatsApp group. I will communicate in the WhatsApp group. So how it will be administered, I'll communicate in the staff room. But mostly, I want it to be a takeaway that we take that I'm going to give you a period of 1 week, just like the other one. But now this one will be 1 week. And from the last week, last time assignment, that is assignment 1. Allow me to give feedback on assignment 1. I can see that we are 141 students and only 112 did the assignment. Only 112 did the assignment. So if you didn't do that assignment, take responsibility. We are not going back to it. We are not going back to that particular assignment. I gave a duration of 2 weeks from 23rd September to 7th October. Those are exactly 2 weeks. Again, remember that next week I'm going to give assignment 1, and most probably I'll give a whole week. I'll give a whole week, 7 days for you to do that assignment. No, cut. It is a cut 1. Cut 1 is out of 15 marks. So those who have not done assignment 1, just know that if you don't do cut 1, you will have lost 20 marks already. So if you are aiming for a distinction, forget about it. Allow me to tell you that today's notes are already been opened. you can upload them or you can download them. Secondly, I've opened today's discussion, and today's discussion says this, that argue for or against Friedman's view. We have learned about Friedman. Argue or for or against Friedman's view that the very foundation of our free society would be undermined if corporate officials accepted any social responsibility other than to make as much money for the stockholder as possible. So you've been told, argue for or against Friedman's view. Then a discussion forum, you're supposed to post that in the discussion forum, and then there is a quiz 5 waiting for you. So for the remaining period, without wasting much time, kindly let's go and do those particular activities. Another thing, last thing is about the register attendance. The password for the attendance is sharing there. Sharing it there on the chat. Password, I've already shared. It starts with 29, small r, p, small r, small p, small c, and then 7. And that is it. Until we meet next time, I will wish to stop at that point. So I wish to stop at that point. Also remember, those who are joining us for the first time, there is always recordings for every class that has ever been taught in this particular platform. So go through those recordings so that you can be at par with the rest.